to the Nutrimedical Report, and we are talking to John from NUTRIODINE. Now, we had a program the other day talking about NUTRIODINE and the amazing effects of monatomic Tesla-activated iodine on the body. And I tell people there's three major areas it works. It works basically on the spiritual side because it decalcifies the pineal gland, the connection between your higher self and your mind or soul. It resurrects your mitochondria, and in fact counteracts the effects of all radionuclides and all toxins on your mitochondria, and stimulates mitochondriogenesis. And the third area is it kills all known pathogens, not only extracellular pathogens, but intracellular, including viruses, bacteria, mycobacteria, psittacosis, and fungi. Those three areas are pretty dynamic. It regenerates your thyroid. If you remember, I've talked to people and they say, well, my doctor told me he took all my thyroid out. I said, they can't take all your thyroid out. You'd bleed to death. They can do what's called a subtotal thyroidectomy, which is that 40 to 60% of the gland is gone. That's it. Then they give you radioiodine, and even then your gland will grow back over a period of years. And if you give our mitothyroid supplement, selenium cruciferate, minerals plus, and, of course, NUTRIODINE, the gland will grow back over the next 2 years roughly. And you can monitor it by monitoring your blood levels, free T4, free T3, free reverse T3, and core body temperature with a gerotherm thermometer or high sensitivity electronic thermometer. So John, tell us about the technology. This higher energy form of iodine has a different spectral pattern and frequency, so it can displace, it's the only form of iodine that can displace fluoride, chloride, and bromide that have what's called higher electrophilic capacity as a molecule. And it's important for people to understand that if you're going to restore health and life and lifespan, you have to restore mitochondria. In fact, there's a term that is out there for a while for those people that are into the advanced biology in this, and it's part of the anti-aging research by medical doctors and scientists. It's called mitochondrial protofection, which basically resurrecting super powerful, clean mitochondria that don't generate free radicals. When mitochondria get old or damaged, they generate a tremendous amount of free radicals. So the point is, if you have mitochondrial protofection, the first step is you got to make new mitochondria and stimulate apoptosis, or destruction of old damaged ones. You have to make sure that you're generating in all your body compartments, including your brown adipose tissue, muscles, brain, etc., adequate levels of T3, which is the outer ring 5' deiodinase. You have to suppress the inner ring 5-deiodinase that forms reversed thyroid hormone, which blocks your thyroid metabolism and your mitochondrial energetics. And literally, if you took a space travel between here and Mars, which is 10 months by normal sublight speeds, you would have to take reverse T3 in your space capsule for you to take 2 or 3 weeks worth of food and make it last 10 months. So reverse T3, and I'm basically the first to say this anywhere in the world, that space travel will not happen unless you use reverse T3. Now, in people that are obese, the reverse T3 is being made by their adipocytes and by their liver, and it's usually tied directly to leptin and insulin resistance, so you see hyperinsulinemia, decreased core body temperature, elevated reverse thyroid hormone tests. And I first noticed this when I was working with Dr. Otto Huhn, head of pathology at the University of Calgary 35 years ago, and got persecuted for it in my research with the head of the Ron Carey Research Institute in Diabetology, Dr. McEwen. And of course, the people know my past history, and the latest debacle back in 2007 with the Colorado Board of Examiners. They know that I am a pariah, I am a pain in the butt, and I am smarter than pretty well all the other doctors out there. And that's not being arrogant. It's because I'm not settled to not know the truth. I have to know the truth. It has to be scientifically valid. So, John, when you've done spectral analysis of your Tesla-activated iodine, there are no competitors, are there? They try to pretend there are, but they're not. They're just trying to market.
That's correct, Dr. Bill. You know, we when we first started, when we had this call for something that would help with the drug-resistant malaria, there was nobody nowhere talking of a consumable form of Mason iodine, of the iodine that we have that is Tesla activated. The only thing the doctors really had at that time was something they could use to treat pacemakers and things like that. They wanted to kill all the parasites, bacteria, fungus on a pacemaker, and they could put it in a bath, but people could not drink the bath. It was no good. So we came up with a method for producing it, and it is definitely one of a kind. There's nobody even approached the idea of the Tesla-activated field, the action of producing a monatomic iodine in a form that will keep it for years. It doesn't go bad. You can lose some of your alcohol, it may evaporate, but literally the monatomic iodine stays because it has an identical form of energy. As we create this huge field, each side is pulling at the same strength. So each atom we create of the monatomic NUTRIODINE has the exact same energy level, and therefore they cannot pull back together. There's nothing that says one is stronger than the other, so each atom stays available to release this extra energy when it comes in contact with a parasite or it approaches a halide that's not supposed to be where it is. This iodine will step right in and give a little burst of energy. It just knocks the parasite or bacteria or virus out of the playing field, and therefore this does such good to the body. It really does, and it has this energy, and it's really available. It gives the body something to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the amazing thing to me is we're at a time now where Edgar Casey prophesied this, that it would become a time where this would become a major salvation to the human race. And if I was to summarize the primary best test to measure how long you're going to live, it would be how healthy are your mitochondria. If you want to call thyroid hormone, it's the key for the lock on the mitochondria. That's what thyroid makes, is T3. T4 has 1/4000th the avidity to the T3 receptor on the crystal galli of the mitochondria. Reverse T3 actually non-competitively binds against the T3 getting in the receptor and literally turns off your metabolism, puts you into suspended animation. Everyone who's obese has decreased leptin, insulin, and active T3 receptors because there's elevated reverse thyroid hormone. So if you find somebody with metabolic syndrome, the primary things you'll find is fasting and 2-RPC blood sugar and insulin are elevated, maybe just the insulin unless the sugar's not elevated, and you'll find elevated reverse thyroid hormone and core body temperatures low. All heart disease, all dementia, all autoimmune diseases, all premature aging is related to hypometabolism. It's a more advanced term than saying hypothyroidism because hypometabolism includes, for every case of people with antithyroid antibodies, macrosomal thyroid globulin, you have 19 more people, at least to 30 more people, that have TRS, thyroid resistance syndrome, or part of metabolic syndrome. And although they kind of make quotes that, half the population by 40 has metabolic syndrome and 75% by 60, if you use a insulin glucose clamp test, which is an advanced laboratory test that we were using, or insulin glucose tolerance test with 50 to 100 grams of sugar, and you measure insulin, as well as blood sugar, as well as ACTH, as well as T3 and reverse T3, and prolactin, etc., and other hormones, and cortisol, what you find is that in metabolic syndrome, it's probably more like 75% of the population, even in their 20s, have metabolic syndrome, and by age 35 to 40, 98%. And that means we're all dying prematurely because of mitochondrial apocalypse. And the disease pathways can turn to cancer in one person, or heart disease in another, or dementia, but it's all basically the same problem. Your mitochondria are being destroyed because of lack of activated iodine, lack of new mitochondriogenesis, calcification of the pineal gland that calcifies the higher centers of the brain connection with your soul or your mind, and the decreased redox or electron density that leads to destroy your ability to fight intracellular pathogens that switch on genes to cause cancer and autoimmune disease. So this is the biology of why we age and die early with disease. I'll come back and John, explain the little bit of the technology. You have the crystalline reagent grade iodine crystals. It's put through a Tesla field with very special brewing technologies, which are unique. No one else in the world has mastered this. I hear all kinds of other people marketing some forms of thyroid. They're garbage. They're garbage, and I challenge them to prove They're the same. You cannot create monoatomic Tesla-activated plasma forms of iodine without a very powerful Tesla field, which is dangerous, and you have to have the right technologies to know how to go through this over a number of hours to properly brew it. And once you have this, you have to have it stabilized, and of course you want it away from heat and sunlight. And if you do, it'll be good for years. It's very, very good. I tell people, put it upright, put it in the refrigerator or in a container in a cool place under 75 degrees, and it'll be good.
Yes.
But I tell people the ideal place is to keep it in a cool place away from sunlight.
Yes. The sunlight has these photons that introduce energy at random levels, and that's an enemy of the monatomic iodine that we work with. We have all our iodine at a certain energy level, and it doesn't vary from one to the other. So there's no ability from one iodine to pull the other over to try to make another back to a molecule. They can't do that.
It's primarily the ultraviolet light. The infrared light's not so bad in the end of the day. That's why I tell people sun at the end of the day, because then you're getting infrared light and ultraviolet.
Yes.
And the ultraviolet light is therapeutic. It actually will help your body heal. Ultraviolet light's not. Ultraviolet A will tan you. That's okay. B will burn you. C will give you cancer because it causes DNA breaks and photoactivates drugs. And D can go right through your clothing or the side of a building and can kill you if you get a lot of D. So thank God the ozone layer knocks out D very effectively. The ozone layer, though, is thinning, and of course the global policies to cut the carbon recycle path between carbon dioxide and oxygen means that the ozone layer, if it gets thin enough, you won't be able to grow crops outside, or if you go outside you'll get cataracts or get skin cancer or die because it suppresses your immune system and your T lymphocytes going through your skin when they're hit by high energy ultraviolet light. So NutriODINE, when you do this procedure, John, it's very, very interesting how other people try to pretend they have a form of iodine. They're using iodides and other forms. They're actually quite toxic when they give them to people, and they don't understand. They will actually induce hypothyroidism, hypometabolism, by giving them diatomic forms or iodide forms, which can be toxic to kidneys, peripheral nerves, etc., whereas our monoatomic does the exact opposite. It activates your mitochondria, protects your brain and your organs. It kills off pathogens, which these other forms of iodine will not. They're very, very ineffective. Even things like the surgical scrub they use, like called betadine, these are quite toxic if you get a lot of exposure to it. You don't want to be taking iodides. For example, when the Fukushima Daiichi happened 4.5 years ago, the government literally shut down sites selling the iodide form and other forms of iodine because they knew that if people took the normal dosage for even just 9 days, they would start getting toxicity. You don't get that and I hear all these, so even doctors that think that they're experts on this. Let's put it this way, all you doctors, you know nothing compared to me. Nothing. You don't know about reverse thyroid hormone. You don't know about the electron chain and the cytochromes in the cell. You don't know about the outer inner ring deiodination process. You don't know about body compartments or thermography or any of these things. You know nothing. And if you want to challenge me and you think you know more, come on in the air. 800-259-5791, and I will do an intellectual dissection on you, because I'm sick and tired of people thinking they know more than me on these issues, and they're putting the public in danger. They're giving people things saying it's their thyroid shield, it's this or that, going to protect them, and it actually causes harm. It's very disturbing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And they have the idea that they can put it in a glycerin and somehow get that into the monatomic state, and that's incorrect. They feel like they can just shake it, and somehow by vibrating it, they will induce that additional energy into the monatomic iodine atom, and that just does not work. It has to be put in with the Tesla field, high energy, alternating currents. These things they haven't thought of yet. It's simply not part of current science, and you can't find anybody that knows how these things work. They don't even they haven't considered using the Tesla field to break the molecules, the iodine molecules, into monatomic atoms. And so we're just steps ahead of everybody else on this. They just don't know what they're doing. Some people have tried thinking Edgar Casey was telling them just run an electric wire through it. And that doesn't do any good. It's simply running an electric wire through iodine. It will not turn it into the monatomic state that we are used to dealing with. So we've talked with people, and it's just not worth it trying to convince them that what they're doing is wrong. And unfortunately, if people think they can try something, they'll spend a lot of time trying a product and then realize it just doesn't work. Some people can tell right away when they've bought these faulty products that it's not our NUTRIODINE. It's not the one that works. So they switch back real quickly. But some people will wait around hoping that eventually it will do some good. It'll eventually work. But that's a fallacy. If it's not in the monatomic state, it's not going to do your body good.
Right, and the other thing is, if it's not high enough energy, it can't displace the real dangers of fluoride, chloride, or bromide. And what they do is they displace the iodine on the thyroid molecule, so you don't actually have the thyroglobulin with 3 iodines. You have thyroglobulin with fluoride, chloride, or bromide. Unless you have a higher energy form of iodine, the monatomic energized form, you can't displace them because the chemical principles, these higher other molecules, halides, are what's called more electrophilic. All of them. Chloride, fluoride, and bromide. Back in the 70s, they converted bread to using not iodine, which they realized how to reverse goiter. So in the 70s, they switched to bromides. So there's bromide salts in a lot of breads. They have fluoridation everywhere now. Toothpaste, water supplies, a lot of drugs, for example, the serotonin reuptake inhibitor drugs, they're all fluoride salts. So we wonder why people are zombies. They've actually calcified the pineal gland and the basal nuclei that connect to their higher self. They literally depress and de-repress different areas of the cortex of the brain, so they no longer have executive depression of amygdala and violent activity, which is why these drugs are dangerous. And when people think, well, no, iodine can displace them, they can't. They can't unless they're in higher energy form. And so I tell people the primary things to get rid of the heavy metals is Keeler Max and liquid zeolite, or non-acid washed ultrazeolite. But the most important thing is NUTRIODINE. And then if you want to reheal the neural pathways, Neurogen, Nutrifos, and Omega Supreme Krill, along with our brain support formulas like Brain Mag, Cognition Plus, Brain Power, Synaptin, etc. But the most important of all, for your health, for women that are pregnant, for babies, for pets, for adults of all ages, is a base dosage every day of NutriODINE and a high dose for serious pathogens. It is amazing. There's nothing like it. And of course, Deborah has a number of very important websites, primarywater.org, and some other websites, stopthecrime.net. Deborah, I just yesterday had a chance to talk to my wife, Michelle, and I went onto this drought for 4 years. 4 years ago, I actually put in a roof water collection system last year. After some going back and forth for a few years, I had GPR, ground penetrating radar, done on our property here in Vista, California, and found on the northwest corner of our property we had a very likelihood of having water located at 330 to 400 feet. Primary water is much deeper than that, and I'm going to put in a call to Tony Aramillo. Today I did, to find out if they can do very deep GPR to look for primary water that's much, much deeper. We're not talking about the aquifers, which there's 1,000 wells in California have already gone dry. If the drought continues here, by next year there'll be millions of people panicking to leave, and real estate will collapse and the state will go bankrupt. People don't realize just how serious this is. The collapse of the western United States will be the end of America. This drought can destroy the nation more thoroughly than a foreign invasion or a coronal mass ejection or anything. And people don't understand.
True, of course, Dr. Bill, what we do know is that we have weaponized and staged weather events that are creating the illusion. Well, not the illusion, because we do have a drought.
Oh, it's drought. It's a real drought, but
that only has to do with the secondary water cycle. The primary water cycle, which is, again, we discussed that on a YouTube that we have up called Primary Water Explained. That's the new juvenile water that has never, ever previously been exposed to atmospheric conditions. It's made continuously by the process of hydrogen and oxygen down below the mantle, and it must surface as it turns to vapor and forms into water, because you cannot contain the water. It must surface. So the depth of drilling for primary water will vary on the geology of the property in which you're trying to locate it. Yes, it could be deep, and it could be just a couple hundred feet. That's why everyone that's listening right now, I would recommend that you pay close attention to the YouTube that we have up, Primary Water Explained. You will understand the primary and secondary water cycle, that we have been misinformed about the true science of water. And what is being created right now is literally, as you just said, Dr. Bill, the pummeling of the real estate market in California to pick up the properties for pennies on the dollar. We have plenty of water. This is a staged weather event, and we're not out of water. We have renewable water, and we've got to start looking down. We've got to spread this information out far and wide, because primary water is good news. And again, go to primarywater.org. Look at some of the YouTubes we have there, Water Wars, which is a YouTube, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, a really important YouTube. We weave the report from Iron Mountain in that, as well as the American Bar Association, who's running front and center, along with the EPA and other corporations, Nestle, and et cetera, to steal and privatize the water of the United States. And we have some extremely important documents out of England, Dr. Bill, and also out of Israel that talk about the corporations that have been set in place to privatize the public water municipalities in the United States of America. In other words, to steal it. So what does that look like here in Northern California and elsewhere? Because what you're going to hear me talk about, Dr. Bill, is happening nationally. It's global. They're privatizing the water globally to set up on a centralized power structure, bringing in GMO, certainly dictating the migration of millions of people based on the illusion that they're out of water. We have farmers and ranchers here in Northern California, and certainly in the San Joaquin Valley, the central valley of California, that are literally leaving their farms and ranches with the misunderstanding of how water really works. And that's all of our jobs. Everyone that's listening, you've got to get on board. You've got to help everyone understand we have plenty of water. We just need to access it. And as you had said, Dr. Bill, the depths will vary. We have an insider that reported to us what was going on in Libya at the time that Muammar Gaddafi had access to primary water and was delivering it to his people. 70% of the Libyan people's needs of water were met free by bringing in primary water, which was discovered in the deserts of the Sahara and brought in through the Great Man-Made River Project. A beautiful thing to watch. You can watch that on YouTube.
Yeah.
But sadly, it was blown up when NATO and the United States went in and blew up Libya. And you know what they said, Dr. Bill, for the well drilling equipment? They had, there's a company out of England called Challenger Limited, and at the time they had at least 10 water drilling rigs that were operating in Libya. And they said that the reason that the well drilling equipment was blown up is they said they looked like rocket launchers. No, they blew up all the ability for Libya to continue to access primary water. They don't want any of you that are listening to know how water science really works.
Right.
And right now, we've got to understand the truth. We are building ourselves into a false reality based on false markets, based on the idea that now we have to reduce our CO2 emissions. We need CO2. We need more CO2.
If you don't have CO2, you can't create oxygen. In fact, here's the political and the you made a simulated program for it. I was an expert on simulated programs with Pascal and PL1 and Simula. If you make a simulation program with the proper drivers and equations, and you cut the carbon-oxygen cycle, and you capture carbon dioxide. And I met with the physicist who actually founded the World Constitution Parliament Association in the United Nations in 1958, spent an entire evening with him in 1997 in Colorado Springs. And he told me their theories. I thought they're haywire, because I was an oceanographer before I went into medicine in 1973, and one of the primary members of Greenpeace. And Greenpeace, of course, was taken over by globalist maniacs, and so I got rid of them. And I continue to say how Greenpeace has been co-opted, just like the World Wildlife Federation was founded by Prince Philip and his other maniacs, Satanists and pagans. What you have to understand is that it says in the Bible that the waters of the deep, which means the waters underneath the tectonic crustal plates of the earth, go back, half a mile to several miles deep in order to get there. And there's tons of water. In fact, the waters underneath the crust of the earth are greater than the ocean.
Story, Dr. Bill, because they were accessing water there in the Sahara Desert between 1,800 and 2,400 feet was more or less where they were hitting water. And
so we're not talking about we're not talking about aquifers. In fact, the people in Libya and Morocco and North Africa know about these oases because there's no source for the water. If you have a camel group and they're going across the Sahara Desert for the last 3,000 plus years, because by the way, a lot of the Sahara is actually relatively new. It's not old. That those oases are fed by primary water. And all the Arab people and all the people in North Africa all knew this. This is nothing new. This is old knowledge.
Many different nations throughout the world know about this. In fact, on primarywater.org, we have some talks that have been recently put together so that you can listen to primary water experts talk about how they were hired by magistrates and kings. This is back in the 70s and 60s to go and locate primary water. And so it is certainly a source that has been recognized but been hidden because the international bankers are seizing an opportunity to control us all from water. But this water letter that we have received here in Northern California, they're going to start picking us. Yeah, they're going to start picking us off now individually in regions, and so that none of you that are listening will know what's happening to us. Well, I'm going to tell you what's happening to us here in the Russian River tributary area. The Russian River area is right near Bohemian Grove. In fact, Pacific Gas and Electric bought the water rights that are the uphill stream flows from us. And I'm going to go over this water letter on the other side of the break. It's diabolical, and it's the reason why you can no longer sign contracts or fill out forms or questionnaires or surveys.
Yeah, when we come back, we need to face this music. It's not a future conspiracy theory. Welcome back, and we're going to have you back on Monday in the third hour here on Genesis, on the Nutrimedical Report. So let's continue. This is pretty cataclysmic, actually. People need to understand what they're doing to you. Basically means they're going to destroy the production of food supply. 90% of the food, a good part of the time in America, comes from California. A process is already happening. There are up to 500,000 acres that are already left fallow. This crisis, if it continues next year, and by the way, it's all artificial because I even pulled up a Drudge report today. They're expecting that we're heading into a modern ice age. That I documented over the last 4 years with Dr. Habibil Adamazatov from the Russian Space Agency, Dr. Easterbrook and other experts, and Robert Felix in Ice Age Now. We are actually in a modern cooling period, and La Nina, and natural cycles should give us tons of rain, and cooling the southwest U.S. by 3 or 4 degrees. The fact is it's not happening because they're actually geoengineering to block the weather to create an artificial drought. And so even the jet stream is not occurring properly, so those weather systems sat over Texas and caused a deluge. The same thing happened over Tbilisi.
Well, Dr. Bill, we're noticing massive evaporation here. Everything is dry. When people are watering, it's gone instantly. So certainly we know that evaporation is all part of moving the water around as well. But what we also received here in the Russian River watershed area, which is about 16,000 people, is they've got increased emergency regulations now for deep water restrictions and conservation of water to protect specific fisheries in the Russian River tributaries. And what they're talking about is the protection of the coho salmon and the steelhead trout. They say that they are near extinction, and that absolutely any water diversion at all. Now, listen carefully. I went to a watershed meeting. It was discussed that if we have any water diversion whatsoever, it is that much of a reduction from the streams and creeks. I went on to the EPA website. I learned what the definition of water is. I will tell you now. It is absolutely any form of water, both chemical or biological. So what the intention is it's the commodification, the selling of every single aspect, things that were never able to be sold in the past, including the elements of water, including oxygen, including air. They're commoditizing everything for sale, and they're going to move us around into what they call resilient cities that are planned cities to rush us off our lands into so that they can help us emotionally with the challenged weaponized weather events and food shortages and so forth. Dr. Bill, we have a YouTube up called KILL, K-I-L-L, Arc Storm, where we filmed a NOAA representative giving a PowerPoint talk about what it would look like for California to be taken down as a result of a variety of climate change events. Of course, climate change is the weaponized control of the weather. We've got to say that in tandem. Climate change is the ability that the weather has been weaponized, and they're using it to create the climate change. That's it. That's the bottom line for that. The bottom line for water is that we have primary water. It's continuously created within the earth. We have plenty of water. We do not have a shortage. Don't fall into the fear. Take action and get the water truth out. So regarding the letter that we received here in Northern California that's cautioning us about diversions, here are a couple of things buried within this letter that are very important. And this is why I keep saying, don't fill out forms, questionnaires, surveys. Do not answer anything that this de facto corporate government asks you. It's all for data collection so that they can track you individually and your properties as well. So don't fill out anything. But here's what they say. The proposed emergency water regulations will require, number one, all landowners within the watersheds to provide information on their sources and use of water. They want a list of all of your sources of water. Don't give it to them. Don't fill out any information. And we need to start, Dr. Bill, building well pumps around our wells and putting locks on them, because certainly they're going to attempt this smart water metering process as well. The second item on this letter is enhanced conservation measures by users of water sourced from the watersheds. But here's the big one. Proposed emergency regulation will prohibit new groundwater wells. So, Dr. Bill, buried in this letter is the eliminating of putting in new wells or surface water diversions for the duration of the emergency regulation, which is 270 days, unless extended by the State Water Board. Now, the State Water Board is Rockefeller, Rothschild, the Rand Corporation, NASA, Nestle. In order to understand those corporations that are literally shredding the United States of America, please understand the water situation by watching the YouTube, Who is Running America, and the climate action plans, as well as water wars, stealing water for profit and power. We have the lists of the corporations with the attached documents that tell you the Bar Association is involved. We are in a takedown, and we must stop giving our information, and we're going to have to fortify our communities. There's nothing short of that, Dr. Bill.
Well, let's put it this way. When I put my well, or if I put in a deep well system that gets the primary water, it'll be completely enclosed, and if they try to go near it, they will be shot on site. Well,
I hate to say it, but we're getting to the point when I found on the Department of Interior website, which is, again, in that YouTube, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, on the Department of Interior website, Dr. Bill, I found a water conflict map of the western United States, and it's color-coded. It shows the various areas in the western United States where water conflict is going to lead to shooting and killing. And they know it because they're creating it. They are trying
they want to create. They're chaos
water.
masters. They're chaos masters. Now, we can talk about this in the next hour with Jonathan Gray, the things behind it. But what people need to understand is this is not a prophetic thing of maybe a generation from now this will happen. This is a today thing. This is a documented thing. You have the letter right in your hands.
Yes.
This is not open to speculation. This is not open to people's damned opinion. You know, this is like if the boat is on fire and it's already nose down into the water in your lifeboats and you can see the gunnels of the ship going under. It's no longer it's time to kind of think that if we just pray hard, the ship won't sink.
Well,
it's sinking. Well, we're now in a state where Obama is doing a takedown of America along with the global communist, socialist, Masonic maniac Satanists. That they're in collaboration with the Pope now, that we talked about in the first hour.
Right. With
the United Nations, Shellen Hooper, who actually is the Club of Rome. We have to understand that we're dealing with right now is the end of human civilization, as you know.
Well, Dr. Bill, I'd like to add, we're losing our rural fire departments. They're under mass assault right now. We also have a plan, the burning up of Northern California. We found the plan to burn up Northern California. We also found another plan. In the media, as of the last few weeks, there's been national coverage of a community called Mountain House, just outside of Tracy, which is fairly near San Francisco in California. Mountain House. We discovered some very unusual things about Mountain House. Mountain House is not a city. It's a homeowners association run by a board of directors. It was set up by Rothschild. The original land acquisition with son Chase is a Rothschild-linked corporation. They acquired the land for Mountain House. It's a planned community. It has about 9,600 people. It was built as a stage to foment the fear around water being cut off. Don't become fearful. We don't need to vacate California. We need to get smart, and we need to understand we have primary water. And your water municipalities
if California
are going to need to dig for it.
By the way, if California is vacated due to the drought, it's the end of America. It won't exist.
That's exactly right.
A decade from now, America will not exist.
Well, the Dust Bowl was created. Now they're creating this situation in California.
Right.
And they've pulled misinformation on us far too long. It's about time now that we stand up.
It's time for actually the arrest. The Secret Service should arrest Obama. The Cardinals should arrest the Pope. Shellen Hoover should go to prison at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. All these things need to happen now.